2022 is done and dusted, so here are the 5 hits and 6 misses from the two-wheelers that arrived in 2022. Now the way we'll go through this list is first I'll list out a hit, followed by a miss, and so on and so forth, with a few little twists here and there. Now let's start with the bike that has truly set the sales charts on fire. Nowadays, anything Royal Enfield makes turns to gold, and the same goes for the youthful and funky Hunter 350. Its lightness and sporty setup has made it quite a hit amongst those who wanted a Royal Enfield but were shying away from the brand's bikes due to their heft. Now, we rode this bike down to Ridermania this year and saw a lot of Hunters out there. And we are sure that this bike is going to draw a lot more audiences to the brand's folklore in the years to come. TVS's first retro or lifestyle motorcycle hasn't quite struck the right chord. Whether it's a cruiser, a scrambler, or just a roadster has left a lot of the audiences confused. It might pack a lot of features and has an ultra smooth engine, but the motorcycle on the whole turns out to be a little unremarkable. It doesn't quite have the spirit that you would associate with retro machines. And this departure from the usual sporty and race developed machines doesn't quite have the same TVS magic that we are used to. The more impressive two-wheeler that TVS did bring around this year was the refreshed and updated iQube electric scooter. Yes, it has been months since the 3 variants were announced and there's still no timeline of the ST variant's arrival. But the delightful bit is the S version though. Yes, it is simple, conventional, but that's the beauty of it. It is a brilliant example on how to offer a fuss-free, easygoing experience. And not to forget, it was the quickest to reach the top of Lavasa in a hill climb video. Rupees 4.55 lakh for a performance-oriented electric motorcycle. Ultraviolette F77 has just given us a glimpse of what non-subsidized electric mobility will pan out in the years to come. Agreed, it's become more potent now, has a larger battery pack, and looks nothing like any ICE bike on sale. However, that price tag is surely going to put off a lot of people from making that switch. So, even though it might turn out to offer an exciting and unique riding experience, it is still going to be a long time before electric motorcycles can seamlessly integrate into our daily lives, quite like electric scooters have managed so far. And in a similar vein is Tork Kratos. Now, Tork is one of the earliest indigenous electric two-wheeler manufacturers to start operations, but it took them nearly a decade to launch a bike. And even once the Tork Kratos did arrive, it wasn't quite as well-rounded as we had hoped. Now, during our first ride, the motorcycle we rode had a fair few electronic niggles that needed to be ironed out, and the build quality and finish levels were a bit underwhelming. Hopefully, with the company's new facility being up and running properly in 2023, Tork could solve all of the problems we faced with the bike during our first ride and finally deliver on the potential that the Kratos possesses. Coming back to happier times, and this motorcycle, while it has flown a bit under our radar, came back and surprised us when we rode it down for India Bike Week 2022. Yes, Suzuki India's habit of slapping on legendary names on its small capacity motorcycles continued with the V-Strom SX. But this 250cc adventure motorcycle turned out to be a great touring companion. The smooth and punchy motor, taut suspension, upright ergonomics put us in a zen mode all throughout the trip. Don't expect it to go off-roading because it won't, and it might even break apart. But rough-roading or carrying a brisk pace over broken tarmac is what this bike does brilliantly. As surprisingly capable as the Suzuki V-Strom turned out to be, the Yezdi Adventure was equally underwhelming. Now, Yezdi benchmarked the Himalayan to the T, and it still had a lot of shortcomings. Firstly, the suspension tune was such that it limits you from thrashing the bike off-road. The build quality to this date remains questionable and fitment levels haven't improved. But the biggest problem with that bike was its motor. Now you would hope for a tractable engine with adequate mid-range grunt to get you out of tricky spots on an adventure bike. However, the short stroke free revving nature of the 334cc mill meant you had to be constantly working the gearbox to stay in the sweet zone of the engine. And even out on the highway, it turned out to be not quite as refined as the Himalayan while cruising at 100 kmph. Another surprise of the year was the Bajaj Pulsar N160. Now this sporty little commuter turned out to be quite an exciting little motorcycle, and it sort of brought back the old Pulsar charm that had fizzled out with the previous gen Pulsars, and even the 250s were sort of lacking it. The N160 is a fun little runabout that held its own against the segment champ, the Apache RTR 164V. And even then, in most regards, it was better than the Apache. It was almost impossible to choose between the two motorcycles at the time of the test, and even now, we can't do so. So well done, Bajaj. Kawasaki completely dropped the ball with the W175. It is a small 177cc retro bike with the motor putting out a measly 13 PS and 13.3 Nm. It doesn't brag about a lot of fancy features or high-spec components, and even the color schemes on offer aren't quite as attractive. But the bigger talking point here is that even though this bike is heavily localized, it carries a sticker price of nearly ₹1.5 lakh ex-showroom, which is almost Royal Enfield Hunter territory. Before the bike was officially revealed, we were wildly speculating the arrival of possibly the Forza 350 or maybe a Hunter 350 rival based on the CB350 platform, or even the CRF 300L. But the CB300F that arrived was just a 300cc plain commuter motorcycle. Now I get that not everyone wants to go brap, but even those who are looking for a matured sub 400cc motorcycle would find the CB300F to be disappointing. It is not as refined as typical Honda products, the hardware felt overkill for its humble performance, and it was plain unexciting. And don't let me even get started on the price tag, because even though recent times Honda did reduce it, but it was pretty expensive. So formidable turned out to be forgettable. One motorcycle that was unforgettable for all of us here in the office was the new KTM RC390. The sharp boy racer transformed into a serious do-it-all motorcycle. I loved putting it through its paces around the Bajaj test track, and it was quite friendly even in the city. And when I did take it out for a monsoon road trip with Arun, he ended up stealing the keys from me. Yes, it doesn't quite have a nice face, but the GB edition does sort of mask the quirkiness of the new fairing design to a great extent. So that's our list of bikes and a scooter that stood out from 2022. Did we miss any, or have we got any wrong? Do let me know in the comments. Make it your 2023's resolution, if you haven't already, to subscribe to ZigWheels, and see you next year with a lot more action.